So I've been racking my brain. I've been doing all this research. Where could Giannis end up requesting a trade to? So I did the most logical thing. I found the city in America that has the best combination of Greek food and smoothies, and I've landed on one city, Miami. Psychos and sickos unite for another edition of PHNX Suns. Of course, as always, I'm Eric, that's Steven, that's Gerald, Noah behind the Mac, making all of the magic happen, but the most important people, the psychos and sickos in chat, live with us on YouTube, joining us after the fact, and of course, our beautiful, wonderful, amazing, perfect, flawless audio listeners as well. Hit that like button, rate us 5 stars, subscribe to PHNX Sports as well. We are less than 200 subscribers away from 40,000 subs. Help us on our journey there as we settle in here on a Wednesday afternoon. Lots of Suns news around the league. We're going to dive into all of it. I see y'all talking about it in chat. How are we feeling today, boys?
Feeling good. How about you?
Always good. Steven, a good Mercury Media Day earlier today?
Yeah, it was fun. Different energy about a big three. Different vibe about a franchise. So it's like polar opposites of the spectrum right now, but definitely was fun.
Wow. Nate in the chat says, I'm a diehard, but I wasn't subbed. LOL. Fix that. Well, thank you, Nate. We appreciate it. Double check if you think you're subbed. Make sure that you're subbed. And of course, when you're subbed, you also know that Mercury is going live. PHNX Mercury, that is, at 4:30 on this very channel. We cover everything else here. But of course, this show, our purpose is the Phoenix Suns and some last second breaking news from the one and only Mark Stein out at DLLS, writer of the Stein line on Substack, being told an emerging option in Phoenix, rather than a splashy hire outside, is promoting Vice President of Player Programming Brian Gregory to a more prominent front office role. Gregory already has a significant voice in the Suns draft strategy and is highly regarded by owner Matt Ishbia. Our own Espo put a little context out there as well. Gregory was an assistant coach at Michigan State when Matt Ishbia played for them and was a college head coach prior to joining the Suns front office in June of 2024. Gerald, how are we feeling about Brian Gregory?
Well, we don't know that much about him, to be perfectly honest with you. He was part of the hires that the Suns made last summer when they brought on Matt Tellem. Brian Gregory was also part of that press release when he was brought into his role as the vice president of player programming. So we don't know much about him or what his capacity was over the last year. I think when he was an assistant coach, he was there just before Matt Ishbia came, though. I thought Matt Ishbia came in like 99 and he was there from 90 to 96. So I'm not sure if there was overlap there, but obviously they have the Michigan State and the Tom Izzo connection. So we'll see. I don't know what to make of that quite just yet. I think we've all been talking about how they're probably going to go on both coaching and the GM front with someone who aligns with the Suns' vision and the identity that they want to have. So I don't know. We'll see. We just don't know that much about him at this point.
Yeah, that's the tough part. There's a lot of ambiguity with that hire. But I think we all would agree on what the premise of the hire should be. Are you a forward thinker? Do you have a clear-cut vision for the ways in which you want to go about executing this roster and building it around Devin Booker to not only optimize him, but to bring pieces in that can do things independent of him? Do all of those qualities that we're speaking to help and align also with the defensive end of the floor? Are you going to find a starting caliber center to go forward into next season with? These are some of the more pressing questions, independent of Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, that are all kind of in alignment in terms of priority right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to give you a strong opinion on Brian Gregory. I think there are a couple things that you can take from Stein's reporting, and take for your own either caution or just store it in the memory bank. I do think the Michigan State and the ties to Matt Ishbia. I know some people are worried about Ishbia hiring his buddies or friends from Michigan State. But I also want people to take into account the already having a significant voice in the Suns draft strategy and how high we were on Ryan Dunn and Oso Ighodaro and how much they helped. So apparently, yes, he was there during Ishbia's tenure at Michigan State. But is there a way where, hey, we don't know a lot about this guy. We didn't really want the splashiest of moves if it wasn't a Bob Myers or if it was just going to be another retread. Maybe this guy does know what he's talking about and he is good at drafting and he does have a good vision. The reality is, Gerald, you're not going to be able to form your opinion on whoever they hire, established or not, until you see what they do here in Phoenix.
Right, exactly. And to add more context, Mark Stein did follow up with another tweet. He said, revamping his front office from within rather than dragging out a Bob Myers pursuit accelerates Ishbia's stated first step. Then Phoenix can ramp up its coaching search. And that kind of echoes what we heard from Gambo earlier in the day when he was talking about how he expects the Suns front office changes to be announced in the next 48 hours or at the latest early next week. At that time, the coaching search will begin. So I know a lot of people were freaking out about, right now it feels like James Jones is the point man for the head coaching search. Like we'd been saying on this program, they're going to figure the front office out. They probably have some candidates in mind, like a wish list or guys that they want to interview, most of whom are still coaching teams in the playoffs. And then once they get the front office sorted, then the coaching search will begin in earnest.
Yeah, I agree with Psycho Blue, who says Basketball Cthulhu in a $10 super chat. Thank you, Psycho Blue. Says Basketball Cthulhu thinks his subjects would be happier if the names being mentioned didn't have the Kevin Bacon rule to Matt, which is the 6 degrees of separation, even if he's perfectly qualified. But Steven, should that stop him from hiring somebody just because he's connected to him?
I wouldn't say it should stop him. I wouldn't say that. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I'd probably say the same.
It's just
I feel like it's just kind of a clear-cut one with that.
On the outside looking in, though, you're not going to be able, Steven, to buck this idea that some people have in their minds of, well, A, you're just doing whatever you want and you're making all the decisions and so on and so forth. If your big change in your front office is not only hiring from within, but hiring from within somebody you have a deep history with.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to come across as disrespectful, but I feel like that's a very lazy way to look at it, especially given the context that Gerald literally just brought up and you just got done speaking to in addition to that. Like, there's context there that makes it make sense. So let's allow for the dust to settle if that is actually what even happens, because that's not even guaranteed at this moment. Let's let the dust settle on it, see if it actually does happen. And if it actually does, to your point, let's assess the decision-making, the process within that, and more than anything, the results over time with the season to come and obviously the offseason that comes before the season.
And we're also, in Mark Stein's report, notice the phrase general manager is never used. It just says more prominent front office role. I think we're assuming that it would be the GM job, but it could be president of basketball ops. It could be a different front office role. So I'm not 100% sure that this means that he's going to wind up being the GM. He could just take on a more prominent role than he was to this point. So there's a lot of things that we need to get figured out here before we start making snap judgments just because, he went to Michigan State also at the same time as HBM.
Well, and when you don't know a lot about the guy, and you don't know specifically what he's been doing in these draft rooms or what he's been doing as a coach or so on and so forth, you're automatically probably going to assume the worst because you're scarred as a Phoenix Suns fan right now and you think that only bad decisions are going to be made. But I would say if he isn't promoted to GM or there isn't a fresh new voice and that's the only move, that would be concerning, at least in the unknown. This could also be just one move as well. Like, change can be a very broad thing. He could have a more prominent role. James Jones can still be told to take a step back or have his contract expire, and then they can go and maybe hire a full-on president of basketball operations or GM. But I think one of the interesting things, Gerald, that you mentioned in Stein's follow-up was that they want to get started on this head coaching search, which to me means whatever decision is going to be made soon feels like it's going to be the only decision in the front office that's going to be made this summer so that it doesn't continue to be dragged out.
Yeah, I think they want to get their ducks in a row before, well before the draft, before trade talks with KD ramp up, before they maybe try to explore Bradley Beal trades or waive and signs and all this other stuff that they have to navigate this summer. You do have more time with the offseason being a lot sooner than all of us were expecting. But you want to make sure that you get your front office in order, and then you get the head coach, and then you can go into all these summer moves that you have to make and personnel decisions and free agency with an established core group of people that are hopefully all aligned in what their vision for this summer, next season, and beyond are going to look like.
Yeah, I want to make sure I attribute it appropriately. So if I'm misspeaking, someone please correct me. I believe it was Bobby Marks that said it's probably going to be musical chairs in the front office realm. It wasn't specific to one position. It was more of a generalized statement. If that's the case, that's very much in alignment with that. Some people might be moving out. Some people might be switching to a different role, might be promotion, demotion, however you might want to look at it. But things are just not going to be the same. And I think that overarching point is starting to play out with this news that we just got 15 minutes ago.
Yeah, I personally would like a fresh voice, but that might just be what you're stuck with. And
that fresh voice is just a different voice in a new role.
Right. And you never know. Sometimes an internal hire, sometimes somebody fresh, like you can change a lot with that. It doesn't mean that they've agreed with everything that was going on. If anything, they might have seen how the sausage has been made and go, "Oh,
and that's
change how that sausage is made."
And that's what I was about to get to, because if that is what happens, which Gerald said, it's not necessarily that he's going to actually even be the GM. We're just speaking, just speaking in advance potentially. Look at it as the same as an assistant coach that goes to head coach. Yeah. Just because an assistant coach goes to head coach doesn't mean they're running the same things. They have a whole different lens and maybe things that they desire to see that weren't happening because they weren't in that role. But now that they are, like for example with Kevin Young, when you all were up here talking about Kevin Young as a potential Suns coach, he wasn't going to run the same things that Monty Williams was.
Right.
It's going to look completely different. So that is a different voice. But I get what you're saying. As far as us talking about names externally more than internally.
Yeah, I think there's a lot that we are still going to have to learn about this specific topic. We will keep you up to date. We're going to put a poll in the chat. Would you rather have an internal or external hire for general manager? Colin, we're going to get to Giannis talk. I promise. We're going to get there in a sec. We do have some more news that we're going to keep you up to date with here on PHNX Suns First. Hit that like button. Like goal as always is 125. Hit that subscribe button as well. According to Michael Scotto over at Hoops Hype, there are 2 names being added to the Phoenix Suns' potential coaching search. Those are 2 prominent assistant coaches on the number 1 seeds still in the playoffs. That's Cleveland's Jordan Ott and Oklahoma City's Dave Bliss. Of course, those 2 teams have been dominant this season. We're dominant in the first round. I'm just keeping people up to date. Do we have any opinions on Jordan Ott and Dave Bliss?
I mean, I always love when we talk about certain assistant coaches because we get tidbits and small feature stories or things that we hear about assistants, but until they're in the main chair, you just never know how they're going to perform. We can speculate, we can highlight some of the good things about them, and obviously both of them being on teams that have done really well in the playoffs so far bodes well because if you are contributing to success on a team, there's a good chance you can go out and replicate it somewhere else while bringing the specific things that you did to help make that team good. Another team can use those qualities as well. So I think that bodes well if you look at the Cavs and the success that they've had. But again, you just never know how these assistants are going to pan out until they get that type of job. And I will say, again, like we've talked about this, they're probably just putting a rough wish list together. I don't think they've actually started the head coaching search like Gambo alluded to.
Yeah, the characteristics and qualities point is always fun to gauge from the outside looking in when someone's with a different team. It's definitely different when you are the one that's wearing the head coaching hat because you're now a culture setter and the players pick up the baton off of the desired culture that you are establishing based off of your daily habits. All of that stuff is really cool. And you can throw any coaching name on top of the Suns, and that'll be awesome. But it's all going to come back to owners being on the front office, and can they execute in a way of building a roster that's going to align with them, putting that coach in position to be as successful as they can be. If that part, that latter end is not matching with the name that you're putting to the roster, it's going to be all for naught because you're going to be in the same situation where you feel underwhelmed from yet another head coach This time, the 4th. So you need to do everything that you can to find that coach as soon as possible, yes, and then align yourself with that type of philosophy that he's looking to implement.
Well, we know one guy who's not going to be the next Phoenix Suns head coach, and that is the two-time Phoenix Suns MVP. That, of course, being Steve Nash. Mark Stein reporting yesterday that he is planning on taking a deal with Amazon. Of course, part of their inaugural season of coverage for the NBA and part of the media rights deal that they were able to grab earlier last year as well. Nash will be joining Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, and another cast of characters over at Amazon to basically be like their inside the NBA. And Dirk had something to say about it when that was tweeted from Mark Stein yesterday, saying, now I have to carry this guy again like I did over 25 years ago. So Gerald, no Nash, but he is going to be a part of NBA coverage, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean that team of Dirk, Nash, Blake Griffin, that's going to be really good stuff in terms of just knowledge, chemistry. We know Blake Griffin is funny. We know that Nash and Dirk are going to have a playful dynamic. So I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, I don't even know how seriously the Suns would have considered Steve Nash for a job. The wording on that is not clear, whether Steve Nash was not interested or whether he was even considered, but because it just said he has no plans to pursue that job, which if you're not being considered would count for that. But either way, I'm kind of glad that we're not going down that road, to be honest with you. Not because I don't think Nash could be a head coach in this league, but just because for this particular fan base, there's too much at risk in terms of needing to nail this coaching hire and also just potentially ruining one of the good memories that we have from the last 20 plus years here.
Do you all know who is the host for the Amazon Prime
It's
show?
Taylor Rooks,
Is it
right?
Taylor? Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Taylor Rooks. Because that's why when they were next, Dirk and Taylor were next to each other and about the jog grenade celebration. Yeah,
that's right.
Is Cassidy Hubbard? Is she
I
also
was going to ask. I
too?
think Cassidy's a part of that as well.
Yeah.
That's a fun compilation of personalities
definitely
that we've seen in different factions. I'm looking forward to the basketball coverage from Amazon next season.
Yeah, I think it'll be a right balance of funny, which I know sometimes you get with Inside the NBA, but if you've heard Steve Nash, we've played clips from him, obviously. You've heard him with LeBron on his podcast, the way that he breaks down and analyzes the game. Maybe you don't like him as a head coach. He's one hell of an analyst, and I want to just repeat what Stein said, just quoting him from his article so people are aware of what he did say. Quote, the two-time former MVP has been mentioned as a potential candidate for the Phoenix Suns coaching vacancy, but league sources tell the Stein line that the 51-year-old has no plans to pursue that job despite his long-standing ties to the Suns and status as a Phoenix resident. End quote. So that puts a bow on Steve Nash taking the helm. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on what happens in the Suns front office as far as the Suns coaching search right here on PHNX Suns. But there's some other big news in the NBA and big news that very much affects the Kevin Durant sweepstakes this summer. Of course, we're talking about Giannis, and we're getting into all of it right after our first break. If you want to catch an NBA playoff game with no Kevin Durant or no Giannis, you can check out our friends over at Game Time. The best part about Game Time is if you're trying to escape the sports world because it's just been so brutal to you, you can get tickets to anything, whether it's a concert, whether it's a live theater event, a comedy show, or a different sport. Maybe you want to check out those electric Diamondbacks. You could do it over at Game Times, and they make it so easier with Game Time Picks. I personally have used Game Time Picks to buy concert tickets because Lord knows it is hard to find a good deal on good concert tickets nowadays, but Game Time Picks gets you the best prices with the view from your seat, and they will also credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower priced ticket. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHNX for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account, redeem code PHNX for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Plus, if you're trying to put some money down on where Giannis's next team will be, how good the Suns will be next season, or some current NBA, NHL playoff action, I highly recommend, no, I implore you, no, I insist that you check out Bet365. Of course, the pioneers of live in-game betting have over 90 million users worldwide, and the best part is, if you are a new customer right now, you can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5 even if you lose that first bet. All you gotta do is sign up, use code PHNX365, deposit $10, place a bet for $5, and get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on spreads, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. Over at Bet365, you must be 21 plus and physically located in Arizona. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, text NEXT-STEP to 53342, or visit problemgambling.az.gov. We appreciate everybody in the chat. Enslow, Rich Dog, Lenny, everybody. Larry, who said he's been trying to catch a live show for a while now. He finally did. Lenny asked if I'm going to hop on any D-backs shows soon with Derek. I'm trying to get my home setup all set up, and I think once I do, I'll hop on some D-back shows. But if you want to come hang out with Derek live and watch a D-backs game, well, we have just the place for you to do it. Of course, it's Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass on May 4th. That is soon, as in next week. It's Diamondbacks against those gross, disgusting, scum of the earth Philadelphia Phillies, and you can watch that game with Derek and, of course, all the other PHNX Diamondbacks fans for absolutely free, just like our PHNX Suns watch parties. All you have to do is RSVP at gophnx.com/join. Let us know that you're coming and come watch some baseball.
What the Phillies do to you?
Garrett Stubbs is scum of the earth.
You just can't disrespect Kyle Schwarber like that, but
I could do whatever I want.
You can't do that.
I can. One of the baseball games I've gone to the last couple of years, I took my mom there for Mother's Day, and we were late because I was working. And by the time we sat down, Schwarber hit a home run, and Harper, right. I'm pretty sure Harper hit a home run, and we were down like 2-0, 3-0, and they just got absolutely whooped. I was like, happy Mother's Day.
That's tough.
So
That's tough,
hopefully a better Mother's Day gift this year. Anyway, Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks blew it last night. Was that the last time that we saw Giannis in a Milwaukee Bucks jersey? Instant thoughts, Gerald.
I don't know yet, but it might have been, and it felt like for a Bucks fan, a very heartbreaking end to the Giannis era. If you're up by 7 with 35 seconds left in overtime on the road to force a Game 6 back at home, and you have Giannis playing at an MVP level for the last couple of years, and you look at the fact that over the last 10 playoff games that Giannis has actually played in, they're 1-9, despite the fact that he's averaging 30, 15, and 6. That is demoralizing. Like, since the 2021 NBA Finals, I think the Bucks have won 1 playoff series, which is absolutely insane when you have Giannis still playing at that level. They are in a worse spot than the Suns, than the Sixers, than a lot of these teams if you're looking to try to rebuild around Giannis. So for a lot of people, with Dame having that really unfortunate injury that could limit or potentially end his career as we know it, like, you're kind of looking at this situation, and even if Giannis wants to stay, your only path out might be to trade Giannis and to rebuild at this point. So big changes are coming in Milwaukee. Whether that is trying to just blow up everything around him remains to be seen. But like the Suns, they don't have control of their own draft picks for quite a while. So they're looking at a situation where their realistic odds of fine-tuning things around Giannis and putting a contender around him seem pretty slim. I feel like this could be the end of the Giannis era in Milwaukee, to be honest.
3 first-round playoff exits immediately following a championship is not ideal. Multiple coaches in that realm, also not ideal. 99.5% win probability on the road in the final 30 seconds. And you found a way to have that 0.5% that was against you to go against you. I feel like the universe talks to us a lot. 3 first round exits. Giannis was not available in the first round last season. Dame ultimately wasn't by the end of that series with the Pacers last year as well. And then this season, Dame is out, then he's in, then he's out. Before that, they trade Chris Middleton, one of the key staples to this rendition, this iteration of the Bucks, this championship window that they've been in. There's a lot of signs with the Bucks right now, and I think, to Gerald's point, there's a lot of change on the way. Head coach is probably one of those. Again, maybe it's just Darvin Ham that comes in place of. Which naturally, when he got hired, it felt like they hired the replacement for Doc, the inevitable replacement. Another Doc Rivers team crumbles in crunch time in the playoffs.
What? A Doc Rivers team choked in the playoffs?
Yeah. It's ironic that was just the topic of conversation with him, that he was trying to say was like, you can't put that on him. But when you're the common denominator of so many, that gets tough. All these signs, universe is talking.
I mean,
it
you
feels
traded
like
for
the
Kyle
hourglass,
Kuzma.
those C's in the hourglass. It's like a half a crumb of a remnant left with that for Giannis.
Yeah, you kind of dug your own grave. Obviously, trading for Dame is a move that you do because Giannis put pressure on the front office. I think that's kind of the big thing here is, there are some people who are saying Giannis is going to stay because of like this post from his wife talking about his legacy after the game, and all of the kids are wearing Giannis jumpers, which terrible. They look awful. I'm sorry. Those are crap. Like those don't look good. I get the message. Like an awful fit. Drip is terrible. But focusing on like legacy is the Jay-Z song that's in this post. And somebody tweeted this out and said, yeah, he's gone. He's 100% leaving. Some people are saying that means he's staying because they're paying tribute to Milwaukee. I don't know, but I do know that Giannis has made it very clear. I think he had an interview with a reporter out at USA Today before the Dame move that put pressure on the front office to continue to compete. He's put an emphasis on wanting to win that second championship and how important that is to him. And I think also when you see Luka Doncic get traded from the Dallas Mavericks, you see that sometimes loyalty to a singular franchise will only get you so far. And maybe Milwaukee, Gerald, looks at their situation and says, screw what Giannis wants. We have no way out of this except for to trade him. It doesn't even matter if he asks out. Now, I think that would be stupid. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm keeping him by any means possible. But I think there's a very clear answer here when it comes to would the Phoenix Suns be able to get Giannis? And to me, and I love aiming high. It's no. Yeah. And I still think, and we'll get into why, that this directly impacts the KD trade and what the Suns are going to do this summer. But do you guys feel like there's any chance that Giannis ends up wearing purple and orange?
Not really. I think you could probably play around with the trade machine and try and cook up something with Houston and Milwaukee where the Rockets get KD. They see him as a better fit than Giannis, and somehow Phoenix comes away with Giannis. But if you're getting Giannis, you have to put in the legwork, the heavy legwork of the trade. And we know that the Suns picks that they have, they could throw 3 first-round picks in there, but they're coming from other teams. They're coming from like the least valuable of Utah, Cleveland, Minnesota over the next odd-numbered years. It's really not going to help them in any capacity in trying to get a Giannis deal across the finish line. You could throw Ryan Dunn, Oso, and 3 of those picks in there, and Milwaukee could probably still get 5 better offers out of it. So I just don't see how you could kind of bamboozle Houston into doing the heavy lifting there of sending picks and players to Milwaukee, and you walk out with Giannis. It feels pretty unlikely unless Giannis just put his foot down and was like, I'm going to Phoenix and nowhere else. And I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
We got good smoothies here, my guy.
That I don't know how probable that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably as probable as them losing Game 5 in the way in which they did, which would take an anomaly of circumstances that fall against whatever the major probability is for that to actually happen. And I think the big way for it would be if he sent out his list to Milwaukee of teams that he wants to go to, and it was only a cactus.
Yeah.
But even that, right? We just saw Jimmy Butler, who stood on business and said, I want to go with the Phoenix Suns. It's only the Phoenix Suns. You get traded to the Warriors.
Yeah.
Like, Giannis might say, I only want to go to Phoenix. And if you're demanding a trade and you're Milwaukee, you want to work with him. Mm-hmm. But also, if you're looking at your future here and you're like, oh my God, Kyle Kuzma ball over the next couple of years? No, thank you. Like, you want to get the best package back possible. And there's no way that the package that you get back from the Phoenix Suns would be the best. Now, again, am I going to say it's 0%? No, because we saw Luka Doncic get traded to the Los Angeles Lakers, right?
Correct.
But I just don't want people to get their hopes up for that. And I know we've seen some fan accounts and whatnot put out the jersey swap and say it's going to happen and all of that. And I just don't want y'all to get hurt even more than everybody's already hurt.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that this doesn't have a direct impact on what the Suns do with KD, because Gerald, maybe Giannis doesn't end up on the Suns, but maybe the Suns are involved in a Giannis trade, or maybe the teams who are interested in Kevin Durant wait on Kevin Durant to see if they can get Giannis first.
Yeah, it will be fascinating to see how the trade market plays out for KD based on what happens with Giannis, because a lot of the same teams that would have draft picks and young players and potentially interest in KD, some of those teams could overlap if Giannis suddenly becomes available, and he would shoot to the top of that list because he's about 7 years younger than KD. He's playing at a top 5 MVP level, one of the most destructive offensive and defensive forces in basketball right now. And a lot of these teams that we've been talking about maybe could make sense as a KD trade suitor would probably have the same picks and young player combination that could make a compelling offer for Milwaukee. So it'll be interesting. I don't think that it's a 1-for-1 overlap. I think even for some of the teams we talked about with a Kevin Durant trade, you could make an argument that KD fits some of their specific needs maybe a little bit better than Giannis in terms of their play style and their skill set. But obviously Giannis is going to be the very top of the list if he is available this summer. And that could slow things down for a Suns franchise that may be approaching the draft, wants to have all their ducks in a row in terms of this is what we're doing with Kevin Durant. This is what we got back from a Kevin Durant trade. And now we can go into the draft and free agency with our game plan already enacted versus we're going to have to wait and see. And that's difficult, especially after the draft, if you're still waiting on Milwaukee to mull through these different offers.
Yeah, that's the thing for me with the Giannis potentially entering the trade portal.
Yeah.
That slows down everything regarding KD. Maybe that works in favor of the Suns in terms of building their roster going forward. Maybe that works against them if they're looking to try to get compensation back. And now the market is flooded with all types of competition in that regard. That part remains to be seen, but I think that maybe the most beneficial part, if we're not talking about the two elephants in the room, the two unicorns in the room, rather, would be if the Suns could latch into a Giannis trade via the secondary players that they have in terms of contracts. And I'm looking specifically at Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen. Two trade pieces that could be lumped into something and get the Suns potentially back something that makes sense for whatever it is that they're trying to build, whether KD's involved with that or not. And that gives a little bit more roster clarity to the moves that they're ultimately going to have to make.
Yeah, no, that would make sense, especially because if you're a team that's giving up a ton of players to stack salaries to trade for Giannis, you're probably going to want an extra player or two, even if it's just a throw-in or whatever, that could compete on that team. Royce O'Neal, Grayson Allen would check those boxes. If you're that team that's sending all of this out to get Giannis, you probably need another role player that could help fill in some of those gaps from all the guys you're probably going to lose there.
Yeah, and there's also salary that's going to need to be filled. Like you mentioned yesterday in your article of all the Bradley Beal potential deals that you could still read right now on gophnx.com. Of course, only if you're a diehard, which, by the way, a little birdie told me that sale ends tonight.
Oh, yeah.
$36 ends tonight, and I don't know if we're going to do it again for a long time. So do it. Anyway, you saw and put together a trade that, well, I hated it, facilitated a Giannis trade to San Antonio.
Yes.
But Bradley Beal was involved to fill salary and, of course, accompanied with picks. With the Suns being big players this offseason, maybe it hurts their chances at getting things done sooner, but maybe it opens up a couple avenues as far as getting new teams involved to try to sneak in and make a trade, just like they did with the Drew Holiday, Damian Lillard stuff as well, which you did help facilitate the eventual NBA champions to get their missing piece in Drew Holiday. And we've talked a lot about what you got in that deal, but you were able to do what you wanted to do as a front office because other teams were desiring to make moves.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
Is there anything else before we get to maybe what teams potentially Giannis could go to about how he could impact what the Suns do this summer?
Yeah, my last tidbit with it, whether it's directly involved with a trade that facilitates Giannis to a new location or if it's a trade that's following up Giannis going to wherever it is he ultimately may end up, whatever team ends up with Giannis, there's going to be a context shift in terms of your style of play and the things that you're going to need on the periphery to get the most out of him to keep a defense from just building up a wall in front of him at the rim. With that in mind, and you're looking at a team construct around Giannis, Grayson Allen fits as well as any player in the role-playing realm contractually and in terms of a puzzle piece in the literal on-court aspects to play around him. And I think that's something that a team that might bring him in, let's just say Giannis ends up in Houston, they should be looking to try to get more shooting in the room because they quite literally don't have it right now. And to have Giannis will be quadrupling down on that because of what you would have to invest to get him into your team. So you would then have to fill your roster out. So I could see it, whether it's directly involved with the trade or if it's a trade after the trade that helps to make that happen.
Yeah, and again, like you mentioned, Gerald, it might push all your ducks in a row back, and you might not be able to operate on the timeline that you want to operate on. And that's why I feel like it's just as important to talking about what we said earlier in the show, getting your front office in order. Like getting all of your ducks in a row, not waiting on anything, because now the pieces are going to start to move around Giannis. And obviously exit interviews are going down in Milwaukee. I'm sure we're going to get some sort of reporting soon. Maybe it comes out Giannis doesn't want to be traded, right? And that might accelerate things. You want to be in a position to take advantage of that. But if it's not the Phoenix Suns, which despite what Violet thinks, none of us up here are saying it would be the Phoenix Suns. What team could be interested in Giannis? We've compiled quite the list here on PHNX Suns. So let's go ahead and get into that before we hit our last break and talk a little playoff basketball.
Well, we should probably distinguish because in terms of which teams would be interested in Giannis, all of them. Which teams could actually make an offer and would be interested, that's a little bit shorter.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look at that list of teams that could potentially end up with Giannis here before we take a break. So we got the Rockets, the Spurs, the Nets, the Thunder, the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Heat, the Warriors, the Hawks, the Pacers, and the Knicks. How are we feeling about this collection of, 11 teams?
Yeah. Like we said, every team's going to be interested. These are the ones that could potentially pull it off. I think the Rockets, Spurs, they make sense as teams that could offer a good combination of lots of valuable picks and young players. The Nets, they've got a ton of cap space, and they could probably go all in with some picks and pieces like Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton, etc. The Thunder, they only make sense to me if they flame out, kind of like we said, similar to KD, if they really flame out, and I just don't see that happening. Lakers would love to have a big three with LeBron and Luka, but I have a hard time seeing that. Pacers and Knicks and Hawks are kind of my dark horses here. I don't think the Knicks have the picks to get it done.
I mean, Pacers would be so funny.
It would be really funny, and also, like, I kind of love the fit of Giannis and Tyrese and maybe Miles Turner.
Steven, is there a team that you feel like Giannis specifically in his pursuit for a second championship that he's been very vocal about, he would think would be the best fit for his game, obviously considering you'd have to give up a lot to get him?
Well, to be able to give up a lot for him and still contend is something that only one team on this list of teams that we're looking at can do.
Yep.
That's the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Frightening.
And I would be very afraid of Mark Daigneault getting a Giannis because he's going to just throw him at the 5 and do all types of funky stuff defensively and offensively. And that would be an insane shot in the arm that they're the only team that could literally give up 4 or 5, 6 picks.
Yeah.
Still be set for the future with their picks and not having given up the full table in terms of their young talent to continue to contend with. So I would be very weary because I'm not sure what they're looking to do with their picks, but who else could they possibly get that's better than Giannis if they are looking for that kind of gift horse?
Right.
He's being presented to them in Giannis.
Especially if they don't win this year as well.
Correct.
I think if they win this year, then they might just stand pat. But there's a chance to get the number 1 pick. Like, legitimately, there's a chance to get the number 1 pick.
Yep.
If you're Milwaukee and OKC's knocking on your door and says, we'll give you the number 1 pick. So now there's your foundational piece. You're welcome. And 1 or 2 players to make the salary work.
Yep.
Right. All you got to do is give us one of the greatest players that have ever walked on the planet. Right. Why would you say no as Milwaukee? Plus, you're sending Giannis to the West, which for us is terrifying. But for Milwaukee is beautiful because you don't have to be the team that traded Giannis to the Nets, right? Or to another Eastern Conference team like the Hawks or the Pacers, the team that forced you to get to this point. Anyway, and then play him multiple times a year, meet him in the playoffs eventually. It would be almost ideal for them to trade with OKC, which is terrifying.
Yeah, well, so the OKC, I don't think they can get the number 1 pick because the Miami pick is 15 because of where they finished the season. But to your point,
they could trade all their picks for the number 1 pick. Or they trade the number 1 pick.
They could. But to your point, I do think it's valid that like what happens in the draft lottery could very well play into what happens in both of these trade sweepstakes with KD, with Giannis, because if you are a team like, say, Houston, for example, that somehow jumps from number 9 to the top 4 or whatever, suddenly you have more ammo at your disposal in terms of putting together a nicer trade offer for Giannis, for KD. So it's going to be fat. And San Antonio also, they're 8th in the draft lottery odds. Brooklyn 6th in the draft lottery odds. So these are teams that could be looking at Giannis, and if they do climb up into that number 1, number 2, number 3 spot, maybe suddenly Milwaukee's like, ooh, I like that pick.
Yep.
I can see the headline now. How the Phoenix Suns helped the Houston Rockets land Giannis Antetokounmpo.
That would be brutal.
Last thing I'll throw on there.
I want to cry.
Just with the Oklahoma City thing, I think they're keeping most of their options on the table.
Yeah.
The only reason they didn't make the finals last season was Shea didn't have a number 2 that stepped up. It wouldn't have been fair to assume rookie Chet Holmgren would have done so. But Jalen Williams, when they needed him most, was not there in the capacity that they needed him to be on offense in particular. They get to another point where instead of in the conference finals, they get flamed out in the finals, and Jalen Williams isn't able to step up to the level that they need. Obviously, they could just bank on skill development as they've done the last 3 seasons, but they felt the need to make that move. Milwaukee's not going to get a better young talent in addition to the pick compensation that Jalen Williams plus picks could get for Giannis. And naturally, that puts them right back where they want to be, and they still have a treasure trove of assets to move forward with. So just throwing hypotheticals out there to keep in mind as we're watching the playoffs unfold.
Right. If they win this season, I think it's off the table. If they don't, this is the quintessential moment where you have all of these young players and picks, and if you were ever going to put them to good use, who, like you said, who better than Giannis to put them to use on?
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned the draft lottery. We'll be doing a show during the draft lottery, which means that we will be watching along as we figure out where the Phoenix Suns pick lands. So make sure you mark your calendar for that as well. Of course, we'll be keeping tabs on everything going on in the playoffs, potential Giannis watch. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to share just something that I found funny from the Giannis stuff, where he was grabbing Benedict Matherin's head. And this guy at Lord Balvin says Giannis was holding son like Bane. The Giannis, his body language, his fighting with Tyrese Halliburton's dad, his comments afterwards, his wife's Instagram post, all of it, like you mentioned, Steven, just kind of leads you to believe that this is the final chapter. And if it is, who knows what's next?
Yeah, dude's a winner, and he's fed up with not winning. And he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's never been shy in showing emotions. And I'm not mad at it.
No.
He was never in the wrong with any of those reactions that he had post-game yesterday in any capacity. Dude puts up all-time great numbers. One of the only players in history to get 30, 20, and 5 or more assists in any game in history. Jokic is the only other person that's done it multiple times, and Giannis has done it once. And that result is a loss.
Yeah.
Again, the universe is talking, it feels like.
Tumultuous, emotional evening, not just from the game, but from everything afterwards that came with it and all the speculation. I will be curious to see once all of that noise kind of dies down and he's able to recenter himself and think about everything, what conclusion he comes away with. Because obviously all of that's going to factor in. But that's a tough decision to make as a franchise player who has won a title with an organization who's pledged his allegiance to that city, to that fan base. But he also, like you said, Steven, he wants to win. And I think that road has reached its end if he stays in Milwaukee.
Yeah. And Lucas says all this depends on if he actually wants to leave, right? That he has to publicly and very forcefully request a trade. We all feel like that could happen, but it hasn't yet. So
I'll also say if he's just kind of entertaining the thought, he's going to look at how can Milwaukee improve their roster.
Right.
You can't have the bones of Brook Lopez starting at the 5 in the playoffs again.
Mhm.
It's not going to work in your favor. And how do you have other ways to put other talent around him in Milwaukee? Those are big questions. Anywhere he decides to go, he's going to want a floor space in 5. Chet Holmgren in Oklahoma City again, making
I heard Yusuf Nurkic is shooting threes.
You wild.
Charlotte, Giannis.
Somewhere in Charlotte.
A couple super chats here that we're going to get to real quick because they are about Giannis. One from David, $4.99. Thank you, David. Says, Phoenix gets Giannis in. Houston gets KD. Milwaukee gets Jock, Fred VanVleet, and 6 first-round picks. Milwaukee gets a restart with lots of picks and loses $110 million in salary in 2026.
They do, but they also do not get a single young player to build around. I know first-round picks is good, but they could get kind of close to that and probably get 1 or 2 younger blue-chip prospects. So I don't think that moves the needle as much for Milwaukee as, Fred VanVleet.
So you saying all the Suns will have to include is Oso Ighodaro?
Yeah.
I don't think
Or
so.
Colin Gillespie. Job well done.
I think you got
Ryan.
Ryan Dunn, man.
Okay, on record, I would trade Ryan Dunn for Giannis.
Wow. You've betrayed everything that you believe in.
So the funny part,
wrong hand.
Yeah, wrong hand. First of all, the funny part about you saying that, it would be quite literally what the Suns did with Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Young talent in exchange for a win-now player.
Put that away.
That's what we said.
Okay, it would be a little
That's
different.
what we said
It would be a
too.
little different than trading. It'd be a little different, but yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the nonsense. I'm talking about the young talent for a win-now player.
Yeah, and then one more super chat here. Another hypothetical trade from Teddy. Always super chatting. Thank you so much. Teddy says Houston gets Giannis, Phoenix gets Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith,
Aaron Holiday.
I was like, Drew Holiday is not in the Bucks anymore, brother. Aaron Holiday, Reed Shepherd. Milwaukee gets Beal, 3 Suns first-round picks, 3 firsts they got in the Utah deal, and Houston's 2031 first. So, of course, those 3 Suns firsts are coming from Houston, not from the Suns.
Right.
But you'd be facilitating Giannis to the west. At least it's to Houston instead of San Antonio. Getting Brooks, Jabari, Aaron Holiday, Reed Shepherd, but no picks to give up Bradley Beal and 3 firsts. 2 firsts because they don't have 3 from that Utah deal anymore. They only have 2. So, because they traded 1 with stretch 5, Yusuf Nurkic. All right. NBA playoffs are going on. Obviously, the Bucks lost last night, but a ton of other action, including Noah's Detroit Pistons. We'll be talking Detroit basketball and so much more right after our final break. All Pro Shade Concepts is the place to call if you're trying to extend your outdoor living space. What I would highly recommend doing before it gets too hot. In the sports world, you don't want a team that's just reactionary. You want a team that's ahead of the curve. You want a team that's thinking about what's next. And right now, it's beautiful outside. A month from now, it ain't gonna be beautiful outside. So get your outdoor automatic roll down patio shade installed today, because you can schedule your free estimate today with All Pro Shade Concepts. They've been in business for over 20 years in the Valley. I can tell you how they're voted #1 by Ranking Arizona, or have 1,000+ 5-star reviews on Google, or the A+ Better Business Bureau ranking. But I think the thing that describes their core essence the most is the fact that they started making window shades by hand for friends and family in Phoenix 20 years ago, and now they are one of the largest installers in the state. Call 623-204-1476 or visit allproshadeconcepts.com right now to schedule your free estimate. And if you're driving home in the heat, you're burning more gas. And if you're burning more gas, you need to save more money. And if you want to save more money, you sign up for the Inner Circle, and you can do it for free. You just missed it. 6 days ago was an Inner Circle Fuel Day where I saved 40 cents off per gallon, me and all my Inner Circle friends. And you're probably asking yourself, but Eric, it's the Inner Circle. I can't get into the Inner Circle. That must be so difficult and expensive. No. It's free and it's easy. By the time I'm done reading this ad to you, you can be a member of the Inner Circle. All you have to do is download the Circle K app, type in your phone number, type in your email, and just like that, you're a member of the Inner Circle, getting 25 cents off per gallon on your first 5 fill-ups and 3 cents off per gallon every day after that, eventually bumping up to 5 cents off per gallon, plus all the deals. I just got one of my favorite unbranded sports electrolyte beverages, a 2 for $5 deal instead of 1 for $3.99. That was a great deal for me, and I only got it at Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details.
I got a question for y'all.
I got a question.
So, I hope I pronounced the name right. Srinivas.
Mm-hmm.
If we could get that comment up, Noah, where he's asking about, or he was not asking, he was saying rather that Houston likely prioritizes a pursuit of Giannis over KD.
Mm-hmm.
If you're thinking about it from Houston's perspective, who would you go for if you're choosing one? Obviously, you can strike out on Giannis and then backtrack to KD if you want to, but who would you prioritize if you're Houston?
I would probably prioritize Giannis just because he's younger, but I do think from a playing fit standpoint and the fact that you're probably giving up a little bit less for KD. I don't know for sure that would be set in stone, because I feel like you look at Houston and specifically this playoff series against Golden State, the one thing that they've needed is a go-to bucket getter, someone in the clutch that they can turn to, who can deliver some of those buckets. And that's KD. Not that Giannis can't do it, but KD's playing style, I feel like, would fit better for me with the Rockets. But you never know what a team's going to prioritize. But if it was me, I might be inclined to say KD in this situation.
The age thing is such a big deal, and we've seen Houston's GM go out and say that, they love their timeline, they love their youth. I get that maybe Giannis isn't the best fit. It's Giannis. Tell you what, their half-court scoring woes would still be helped with Giannis. And I do think that you can fit around Giannis. You can find shooters. Players would want to come play with him. I think you could find that and build out for the next 5 to 6 years instead of the next 2 to 3 or whatever you feel like KD could bring realistically. Shout out Srinivas for joining us in the chat. Haven't seen you around here, so we appreciate you stopping by. Subscribe. Keep on hanging out with us. We're going to keep on talking basketball, of course, from a Suns perspective, but we also love just talking hoop here as well, which is why we are going to be diving in. Huh?
I didn't get a chance to answer.
Oh. Anyway, Gerald, what do you think?
No, literally.
You know what? Left hand up. That one's on me, coach.
Put that hand away.
That one's on me. I hate that graphic. That's a terrible picture of me.
You did
picture.
basically call for it on that one.
Literally.
I don't say put up the graphic.
You were like ISO.
Anyway,
put up the hand, the graphic gets put up too.
No, he broke his most valuable hand.
Answer, Steven. Answer before I break my arm on set.
I ask it because it's something I've been thinking about, but like Giannis going to play with Ime Udoka would literally be everything Ime asked for in terms of how he plays defense, the ways in which he could go about insulating Alfred Şengün with more size than Jabari Smith Jr. or Tari Eason provides, more athleticism, more IQ, a veteran on top of all of that. Issue is, like I mentioned earlier, though, you have to shift your whole context if you have Giannis around you. You need more shooting. They don't really have much of any of it outside of Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet, which one of those two, if not both, goes out to get Giannis. But I think you make a good point with the window being a whole lot smaller if you go for KD. And they might be playing a long game there. Betting on having a solid cap situation and being able to go forward with adding pieces around the margins, like a potential Grayson Allen or a Royce O'Neal type. So just talking through it, probably go Giannis 55%, and then the other 45 for KD.
That's an interesting point, because this whole time we've been talking about, well, for the Rockets to be interested in KD, they would probably need to flame out really early in the playoffs. But now if Giannis is also in that same sweepstakes, you would probably want the Rockets to go further and fall short to where you look at KD as like, okay, we do have this window. If you fall out of the first round, which they're on the verge of doing, you're probably taking maybe a little bit more long-term of an approach, because Giannis is 7 years younger and he can still be in his prime for the next 3, 4, 5 years. Whereas KD, your window is probably 1 to 2 years again. So that's a very good point. I will say, if you go the Giannis route, you have to surround him with shooters. And like you mentioned, a lot of your shooting is probably going out in that trade. And this is a Rockets team that was 21st in the NBA in three-point percentage this season. So you are going to have to you can do it, obviously. You can restructure who's around him. But you're going to have to dramatically upgrade the three-point shooting, because as good as Giannis is, the optimized way of doing things is putting a lot of shooters and defenders around him as well.
Yeah. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us in the chat. I know some of y'all got some questions. We can get to those as well. Suns Digest says, when are the non-guaranteed / team contracts up to be waived or renewed? Feels like this also puts a timetable on the other roster moves.
Let's see, non-guaranteed. I think it depends on the contract, but it's not for a little while, I'm pretty sure. I would need to look that up.
And then Leo asked, Gerald, how likely do you think it is that James Jones will get extended?
Not in his current role. I would put that at a very low percentage chance. Like I've been saying, I do think he probably stays on in a different, maybe lesser role, maybe more of a consultant or an advisory role. I do think the Suns value his eye for talent, like we've been saying, and his eye for talent in the draft, his eye for talent in the fact that the last successful coach that the Suns hired was someone that James Jones directly hired in Monty Williams. So I don't think they're gonna, fire him. I think they either let his contract expire or keep him around in that sort of advisory role. But as far as an extension in his current role, I would be very surprised if that happened.
Yep. Thanks for the questions, everybody. Let's chat real quickly about some playoff basketball. Obviously, the Pacers beat the Bucks in overtime last night. Another Doc Rivers flame out. Who could have seen that coming? We've already talked about that. Detroit, New York. What a series. What a game. 106-103. Detroit picks up yet another win in Madison Square Garden, extending that series to Game 6. Steven, that was one fun game.
It was. New York is tough. New York is very tough. They just don't give up. No. They were down almost double digits with around 3 minutes left, where some teams would kind of, okay, we got a 2-win cushion at this moment. You can kind of mail it in and just kind of put all our eggs in the basket for Game 6. And here they are down 1 with like a minute and a half left, or if not even more time than that. Cat coming down court in the clutch and just pulling threes from like 37 feet in transition. Those dudes are tough. Detroit's got their hands full, but they did a great job extending that series. And when you are able to go and steal games on the road in the ways in which they've already shown to do in this series alone, that gives you a great opportunity to get back to a potential Game 7 with the Knicks. So I'll keep a close eye on Malik Beasley specifically and Tim Hardaway Jr. They have to knock down their threes for the Dennis Schroeder impact to have its impact and for other players like Jalen Durant to have the impact that they hope to have too.
I mean, what more could you ask for from a first-round series than Knicks and Detroit? Because these games have been decided by very few points over the last few games. This one by 3, the last one by 1, the one before that by 2, and the one before that by 6. Like, these are single possession, maybe 2 possession games down to the wire. And a couple of them could have swung either way. So I'm excited for Pistons fans, for Noah, that this is going back to Detroit for Game 6, where they have a chance. You guys called it. I think Steven mentioned that the Knicks haven't been the best about closing series out. We saw that in Game 5 last night with the Pistons stealing one on the road. So this is a fun series. I think either one of these teams is getting absolutely demolished in the next round, but that shouldn't take away from our enjoyment of a good old-fashioned first-round rock fight.
Is there any update on Jalen Brunson's ankle? Because
I haven't heard anything.
Obviously,
he finished the game. Though,
he finished the game, but he was taken out of the game and then put back in, along with Josh Hart, who was also injured during that game. Very physical basketball. Again, doesn't bode well for whoever plays that series next.
Noah, Detroit
basketball. Also, Jalen Brunson. He's just getting hurt because he flops too much.
Knew that was coming.
Yeah, I was waiting for the flopping comment. We've got more playoff basketball to break down, but if you're watching us on TV, I must remind you that the party always continues over on GoPHNX.com. And that means it is time for overtime. Again, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, help us get to 40,000 subscribers here on PHNX Sports. If you're just joining us, we went and talked all the Giannis stuff before that. So once we wrap up things here, go back, watch the rest of the episode. And of course, if you're listening on audio, you're wonderful and amazing. Thank you for listening. Boston beat the crap out of Orlando. Third quarter flurry, kind of what we expected, but a good fight from Orlando at some points this series.
Yeah, they haven't felt like they've been like leaps and bounds behind. They feel like they're close. and they have to add more shooting to the room. Same conversations we've been having about Houston. The same thing we're having copy and pasted to the Orlando Magic. But the way they play defense, Jamal Mosley and the strings that he can pull, mind you, they're doing what they did to the Celtics defensively without maybe their most valuable defender in Jalen Suggs.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, just give them the attention that they need. I think there'll be a team that's in the way, but they need shooting in the absolute worst way possible.
Bradley Beal.
You can't win in the playoffs if you're not shooting and making threes at a high volume.
Sorry, I'm stuck in my throat.
If Grayson Allen isn't at the top of their trade wish list this summer, I don't know what they're doing, because you can't finish dead last in 3-point percentage and be a playoff team that, before the injuries to Franz and Paolo, they look like a legitimate top 4 seed in the East. And maybe they weren't going to win this series even if they had a full season with those guys healthy. But they need to insulate those guys with the proper shooting, because we know Franz's shot is a little sketch right now, despite all the other amazing things that he's capable of doing. But, you can't score 13 points in a quarter of a playoff game against the Boston Celtics and live to tell the tale. So future is bright for them, but they definitely have to tweak around the margins and put the right players around their superstar duo there.
Hey, time off.
I'll also say, quiet as it's kept, they have center depth, but the trust in that from Jamal Mosley in this series was not there. A lot of Jonathan Isaac at the 5. Wendell Carter Jr. underwhelmed. Goga underwhelmed in the minutes that he got. They need their centers to be better going forward if they're going to take that step in the right direction that they're hoping to. Small ball can be an option, but it can't be your end-all, be-all.
Yeah.
We had 4 playoff games last night, which kind of felt
that was crazy.
All
type of overlapping.
Denver Clippers. You could argue that Clippers have been clearly the better team this series, yet Denver finds themselves up 3-2 now. Exciting stuff going on, but now the Clippers have their backs against the wall, and Ty Lue has got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they need James Harden to be better. They need a vintage Kawhi Game 6 performance, which we have seen him do when his team has been down 3-2 in a series before. But that was the first time this series that I looked at the game and felt like, okay, yeah, the Nuggets were clearly the better team in this matchup. So it's kind of crazy that they're up 3-2 in the series when realistically they should either be down 3-2 or it should have been a sweep. But they've been able to find ways to win. Credit to them. And now they have a chance to close out on the road. So again, just like I said before the last game, I feel like I have no idea what to expect from this series on a game-to-game basis. And just like Pistons, Knicks in the East, this has been a really fun back-and-forth series.
I think the series still goes 7, but I know my prediction was for the Clippers to win in 7, but you can't waste games like I got done speaking to yesterday in the series. And the fact that they did not win Game 1 came back to haunt them in Game 4, and then Game 5 was what it was. Jamal freaking Murray, when he's making his shots, the audacity, he just does not. He's never met a shot he can't make.
He's such a weird player, dude.
He's a bucket.
No, and I get it.
When he's hot, but he's very streaky though.
That's the thing.
He can give you a 0 for 7, or he can give you a 8 3-point bomb.
He's a mystery bucket.
Point game.
You never know how full the bucket's going to be.
Dude, I saw a tweet that's like, how are we going to explain Jamal Murray to our grandkids?
No way.
He's such an interesting player, and some of the highlights that he has, crazy as well. Super chat here from David, 199. Thanks, David. Your second one of the day. Says, Beal for Dame saves us money, helps Bucks keep 34. We talked about that a little bit yesterday.
We did.
I also don't know if Dame is even going to play next season.
Yeah, that injury.
Even if he does plan on playing going forward next season, he gets injured in the playoffs and Achilles after 33, 34.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, well, we know that the winner of Nuggets Clippers will face the Thunder on the other side of the West bracket. We don't know who's advanced over there, but there is 2-3-1 leads in both of those games going down tonight, starting about 4:30, about 20-something minutes from now. It's Rockets and it's Warriors, with the Warriors up 3-1 after playoff Jimmy and Steph put them on their back in the last game. Do the Rockets keep it alive tonight?
I think they're in a demoralizing spot, but I honestly think at home they do force a Game 6. I don't know why. I just have this feeling that this young group is going to play with some pride and find a way to win another ugly rock fight.
A closeout game in Houston hates to see Steph Curry. That's all I gotta say on that.
That is fair.
I agree. My brain says Steph and the Warriors put him away. My heart says Houston takes a win here. I'm predicting the second good Jalen Green game of the series. He's not a good player, but I think he'll play good tonight. I do think it'll be an ugly game, like Wow Factor said. Plus, it feels like Şengün has figured something out as well. If those two are able to work together and they're able to hit some threes, which I know is asking a lot about this Houston team, but I think Houston can pull off a win. I'm still going to roll with Golden State winning that series, though.
I'll say I picked Houston in 7. Just not looking good, especially after the Steph Curry in Game 6 in Houston.
We've never seen the Warriors blow a 3-1 lead.
I'll just say for this game in particular, when Quentin Post comes into the game, watch what the Warriors are doing with him defensively, because he's been guarding Amen, which has forced him to screen more, which means that Şengün is not getting the ball on the roll at all. It's taking away some of the touches from him, breaking up his game rhythm. They can't figure that part out, and Steph knocks down 6 or 7 threes, which is always possible. Might just be GG's.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Quentin Post, that is the name of a player when you've simulated 20 years in the future.
Quentin Post, and he never spends time in the post at all.
No.
And he would have been the Suns' best center.
Absolutely would have been. A real stretch 5. Take that, Yusuf. Okay, last series we haven't talked about yet. Another game going down tonight. Potential elimination game for Doncic. The Los Angeles Lakers taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves down 3-1, a 7 p.m. tip. Does Anthony Edwards add Luka Doncic and LeBron James to his list of stars that he has bounced from the playoffs?
Yes. I don't know if it's tonight, but I feel like it's going to be tonight. That team felt really demoralized after the last 2 games in Minnesota, and Suns fans and the Suns know how that feels coming back from Minnesota after dropping 2 straight. That dude he's the real deal come playoff time. He elevates his game. The playmaking leap that he's made has been impressive, and I just don't think the Lakers have the defense or the horses around those two to come back in this series or to even force a game 6, honestly.
Yeah, they're putting so much pressure on the Lakers defense because of the ways that Ant is passing it, but also the subtle tweak of using I was about to say Nas Muhammad, excuse me.
He's back.
15 years ago. Nas Reed, using Nas Reed more at the 5 and allowing for Julius Randle to play more space, for Ant to have more driving lanes and to compromise those rotations that the Lakers have to make. It's tough. I don't think they have the horses. They don't have the facilities to win this series.
No, the depth. I mean, they're playing their whole lineup the entire second half.
Correct. I had Minnesota winning in 7. I'm going to go ahead and say Ant gets them out of there tonight.
Yeah, I had Minnie in 6. I felt strongly about this one.
Does LeBron have another legendary game in him?
I think Lakers. I think Lakers win tonight. I think I'm still going to stick with Minnesota in 6. I think Lakers win tonight. Anthony Edwards channels his father and says, and I took that personally, and then bounces them in 6.
Austin Reeves magic at all? People are Lakers fans are high and low. They are out. Austin Reeves after he was just God the last 2 seasons.
Right. What a ride, right? The defending him, and then us saying Bradley Beal's better, and then him being clearly better than Bradley Beal, and the Lakers fans wanting to exile that guy from California during the playoffs. I mean, what a ride for Arkansas Zone. Any final thoughts on the playoffs before we jump back into some Suns talk tomorrow?
It's nice watching fun competitive basketball. I hope we get to do it again this time next year.
Yeah, enjoy the winning basketball.
Too,
it's been fun to watch these first round series. Even some of the series that maybe ended quick had some moments where they were a lot closer than expected. So
yeah. Just a reminder to everybody, with of course the news that we talked about earlier in the show, if the Suns do make a front office move, a hire, whatever it is, we will be doing a breaking news podcast that will be right here on PHNX Sports. So you hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. Of course, you could also follow us at PHNX_Suns to know when all of our shows are going live, especially those breaking news shows, because you just never know when those are going to happen. Other than that, we're live at 3 p.m. Monday through Friday for the foreseeable future, so make sure you continue to tap in with us. We'll be tiering, we'll be snake drafting, we'll be doing Trade Machine Tuesdays, Mailbag Mondays, and whatever else news also pops up. Thank you all for being here, for hitting that like button, and continuing to hang out with us through this offseason. We love you, all of you, psychos and sickos, in YouTube and on audio as well. We appreciate Noah, the birthday boy, by the way.
Happy birthday, Noah.
Happy 15th birthday.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'm so glad I can walk here.
What?
You can follow Steven At Steven PG3. That's Steven with a PH because he balances us out. And by us, I mean specifically Noah. He is on the polar opposite spectrum of Noah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Follow me over to the Mercury podcast starting in about 15 minutes.
Yeah. Merc coming soon on PHNX Sports. Great time to get into the W if you are not in yet, especially with the Mercury. Talk about fun competitive basketball. That's what we're expecting in Phoenix from the Merc. Shout out to Gerald as well. You can follow him at Gerald Bourget. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. Stick around for Merc basketball talk and so much more. We'll talk to you guys on PHNX Suns tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.